this type of technology that came out of the psychedelics and the desire to get people to a state of altered consciousness without drugs.
Right.
So coming along into this work where my background is in experiential design and art, as well as technology and more Eastern healing methodologies, it really was a thing that combined everything together. So, as Jonathan likes to say, we have been sticking our finger in a lot of light sockets in order to figure out what works best and what we can give to our communities, whether it is, people who don't have access to some of the advanced, high tech, expensive biohacking tools, or the more traditional means, because that's not part of their culture. And some of those healing modalities might be stigmatized, right? So in
Yeah.
this modality, it's really an experience. You just come in, you lie down, and we do the rest. And people will find that they go to deeper places, more expanded places than they ever thought possible. Sometimes seeing loved ones who have passed away, sometimes seeing themselves in a completely different frame of reference where you can let go of some of your old stories and see yourself in a totally new way, which creates hope and connectedness and purpose. And that's one of the reasons why it's so good for these stress and anxiety and post-traumatic stress, is because you can
Mhm.
let go of some of the older stories that you've had and really open up the door to new forms of purpose, be able to rewrite and reimagine your life. And that
Right.
really provides this, like, this really powerful, this powerful tool that we get to be a witness of.
Okay. I have to I'm going to celebrate this awareness because um, I'm just telling my listeners now that I actually experienced your reality center, and it was amazing. And I will tell you that it was definitely enlightening, engaging, and kind of taking you in, like you said, end up being very reflective. And I literally saw this figure in the distance. And my first thought was, that's my dad
Mm.
and my late father. And then as the figure started walking toward me, I'm like, no, oh my gosh, that's me. And I was like, whoa. So that was a standout moment for me. And I would tell you that when I got up from the table, it was definitely like, it's almost like I had like a hyper family reunion or something, or a hyper kind of like jetted into it was almost like simultaneously being jetted into your past and your future. And I guess that would almost end up being, if we equated that out, would be like the now. And so very powerful. And I felt really fantastic and grateful and reflective. And so, I mean, I will say from firsthand to my listeners that, these guys out in Santa Monica, it's amazing. And it's really something that I think is going to be coming to people sooner than later. Now, you often describe your technology as like digital psychedelics without drugs. Can you explain how the light, sound, and vibration create this effect in the body and the mind?
Sure. Depends on who we're talking to. Government uh, don't like to hear the word psychedelics, although in other ways that they are invested heavily into that, because, you know, an altered state of consciousness is really a different perspective of yourself, right? People use these means in order to make change and to rewire neural pathways that have maybe ingrained themselves in your behaviors and in your mind. So, psychedelic experience is really shifting your consciousness, your perception of what's possible for yourself, what's possible for the outside world. And most of the time, that's activating something that's already present.
And we're live again today on Imagine Fitting It podcast with Tarun Raj. Welcome, Tarun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, as I previously mentioned, the podcast is about healthy lives and community. And I know your efforts with Jonathan Chia, big shout out to Jonathan Chia, are, right there out there in California. But I know it's inevitable that this is going to spread, and I'm really interested to share what you guys do and a little bit about yourself. So I'd love to start where, Tarun, where were you born? Where do you call home today? And, where were your parents from, like in their roles and their careers?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Go Blue. But very quickly, my family realized that it's a little bit too cold, and so we moved to LA. So really spent most of my life here in LA, and blessed to call it home. My folks actually grew up in India and Australia, respectively. My dad and my
Mm,
mom. So I've had a little bit of a multicultural youth and got the opportunity to spend a lot of time in both of those places. So it gave me some good formative cultural, uh, unique experience. And that
worldly.
I think has applied to, who I am today. And so my dad is actually a Western medicine professional and nephrologist, kidney specialist. My mom runs a practice. So healing and serving people has been really in my genes. My grandfather was also a doctor, so it's nice to, although going in a circuitous way, come back to helping people.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Um, and so for listeners, who may be new to your work, I'd like to, get into like where you hang your hat today. And so, what is the Reality Center, and how does it help people dealing with stress, trauma, or the big one, PTSD?
Yeah. We really help people regulate stress and anxiety, burnout, post traumatic stress, as you mentioned, using this immersive multi-sensory meditation. So it blends light, sound, and vibration into one experience that people of any level of experience or age can use to get into those really deep states that may take an expert meditator decades to get to, or you may need to take something outside of yourself like psychedelics.
Mm, okay. And this was how long have you guys been now offering that, and that road to developing it was probably pretty interesting, I'd imagine.
Yeah, very, very interesting indeed. Uh, Reality Center's been open for close to 4 years. So we've seen thousands of people through this journey. And it really is a journey. We get people of all ages that are looking to really change their life or dip their toes in. And that is sort of the result of many, many decades of development of the technology. I started around 10 years ago with one of our other co-founders who's really the pioneer of this type of technology that came out of the psychedelics and the desire to get people to a state of altered consciousness without drugs.
Right.
So coming along into this work where my background is in experiential design and arts, as well as technology and more Eastern healing methodologies. It really was a thing that combined everything together. So, as Jonathan likes to say, we have been sticking our finger in a lot of light sockets in order to figure out what works best and what we can give to our communities, whether it is people who don't have access to some of the advanced, high tech, expensive biohacking tools or, the more traditional means because that's not part of their culture. And some of those healing modalities might be stigmatized, right? So in
Mm,
this modality, it's really an experience. You just come in, you lie down and we do the rest. And people will find that they go to deeper places, more expanded places than they ever thought possible. Sometimes seeing loved ones who have passed away, sometimes seeing themselves in a completely different frame of reference where you can let go of some of your old stories and see yourself in a totally new way, which creates hope and connectedness and purpose. And that's one of the reasons why it's so good for these stress and anxiety and post traumatic stress, is because you can
Mhm.
let go of some of the older stories that you've had and really open up the door to new forms of purpose, be able to rewrite and reimagine your life. And that
Right.
really provides this this really powerful this powerful tool that we get to be a witness of.
Okay. I have to I'm going to celebrate this awareness because um, I'm just telling my listeners now that I actually experienced your reality center, and it was amazing. And I will tell you that it was definitely enlightening, engaging, and kind of taking you in, like you said, end up being very reflective. And I literally saw this figure in the distance. And my first thought was, that's my dad
Mm.
and my late father. And then as the figure started walking toward me, I'm like, no, oh my gosh, that's me. And I was like, whoa. So that was a standout moment for me. And I would tell you that when I got up from the table, it was definitely like, it's almost like I had like a hyper family reunion or something, or a hyper kind of like jetted into it was almost like simultaneously being jetted into your past and your future. And I guess that would almost end up being, if we equated that out, would be like the now. And so very powerful. And I felt really fantastic and grateful and reflective. And so, I mean, I will say from firsthand to my listeners that, these guys are out in Santa Monica, it's amazing. And it's really something that I think is going to be coming to people sooner than later. Now, you often describe your technology as like digital psychedelics without drugs. Can you explain how the light, sound, and vibration create this effect in the body and the mind?
Sure. Depends on who we're talking to. Government uh, don't like to hear the word psychedelics, although in other ways that they are invested heavily into that because, you know, an altered state of consciousness is really a different perspective of yourself, right? People use these means in order to make change and to rewire neural pathways that have maybe ingrained themselves in your behaviors and in your mind. So, psychedelic experience is really shifting your consciousness, your perception of what's possible for yourself, what's possible for the outside world. And most of the time, that's activating something that's already present within you. Dopamine, serotonin, these different neurotransmitters and hormones that are within us already that just need a little nudge.
Yeah.
So we usually those senses that we experience reality through or experience our life through are the ones that are maybe a little bit stuck in this perspective um, of fight or flight, or they've been wired in a certain way is that they're looking out for danger. That's naturally how we behave, right? And so we go into this sympathetic fight or flight state when we are
Mm.
triggered, right? And the senses or sensors are always looking for danger or something that is requiring us to take a different stance from relaxation into defense or into warning. The light, sound, and vibration by using music and these kaleidoscopic visuals and sound and vibration through the whole body is designed to take you out of your normal way of perceiving reality. And by tuning it to certain frequencies that mimic the brain when it's in a dream state, we're able to take you to that place that normally you have to try really hard to go to through psychedelics or meditation or sensory deprivation. And we sort of amplify all the senses and synchronize them. So your sight, the sound, the feeling, they're all connected together, and it begins to find balance and harmony.
Mm.
Once those outer senses feel comfortable and safe, that's when the mind and body can separate. When that
Mm.
happens, then that's where the magic is. That's where the rewiring of neural pathways exists and neuroplasticity, because in that theta state, you're able to imagine what you need to allow this conscious and subconscious minds to connect into this super conscious place where you become your own medicine, you become your own therapist, as you experience and many other people experience. So the light, sound, and vibration are really just means in order to get your nervous system into a place of safety and allow these inner senses or these other mechanisms of awareness to be activated and to just let go.
Yeah. So I have to make a comment because my experience was exactly that, you know, it was described to me before I started that, it may be get a little chaotic, a little aggressive, but then, as we know, polarity in life, we need that kind of right flight or flight, um, survival mode, good and evil, black and dark, to then it was almost like I was on a journey where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting kind of intense. And then all of a sudden, because you went through and like, okay, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Oh, I can handle that. And then it takes you to this more subtle place. And then you realize, like, no matter what, to me, it was like, no matter what chaos or what challenges you have, right, there is openings and there are opportunities to kind of write it or look at other perspective and realize it's out there. It's waiting for you to be, like you said, uncover um, that safety, and then you tend to get more confident. Um, what what experience, Tarun, because of my about mentors. So, were there any set experiences or individuals? I mean, you mentioned your parents that have most profoundly shaped your personal values and life philosophy. Was that established really early, or you had some other moments in your life?
There was a number of different people who have influenced me along the way, like, some of my current partners. We've been working together for over 10 years, like Jonathan, Benji Tucker, as I mentioned, the pioneer of this technology, Don Estes, somebody who I haven't spoken about much, but in my really formative years when I was going through a lot, just out of college and working at an ad agency, living in Hollywood, really not balanced at all. So I would have failed your class, professor. Um, I met an individual um, who is just the coolest guy in the world, most casual, calm, charismatic, humble person. And I was like, what? I want what he's having. What's going on here? And what I realized is that all it was a form of meditation, reverence, contemplation, Kundalini yoga. And what this allowed him was to go inwards in this time where all these distractions. He was very much involved with celebrity music and event scene, but he had this energy to him where he just didn't really care. None of that celebrity or fame impacted him, and he was like a magnet to it.
He was like
So,
rooted.
what's that?
He was like rooted. This had its own
Yes,
strong
yes.
roots.
Yes, exactly. And I was really looking for identity at that point and what do I want to do with my life? And so very soon after, I decided to leave the Hollywood advertising party scene, and focus really on what my passion one was, which was arts. And so I decided to go do my master's in motion graphics and visual effects in Atlanta. So I moved to
Nice.
Georgia for about 5 years, with a couple years in between figuring things out. And that really changed the direction of my life. Secondly, I would say my brother, who's also one of our partners, our chief technology officer, he introduced me to the concept of feeling energy between my hands like a chi ball. You know, you see a lot of uh, older folks in the park doing tai chi, moving their energy around, and that's really the ability to subtly move your energy just like you would with your breath, or you
Yes.
would by moving your arm or in playing basketball or any of those things. Like there's neural pathways, there's electricity that is firing from the neurons that subconsciously tell our bodies to move.
Right.
Well, through your breath and through your focus and intention, you can actually feel that heat, that electromagnetic charge generating between your hands. And when I realized that all these ideas that I thought were esoteric and philosophical were actually tangible, that changed my path completely. Around that same time, this was, you know, in my early 20s, I began to study Reiki and energy healing. So those were pivotal moments when I was feeling the least in my life as far as purpose and passion, direction, understanding there's something much greater than myself,
Right.
much more powerful and connected, and a source that is a direct line to some of the inspiration and wisdom that I didn't know where I was going to get it from. So those practices and those people who got me there, were really the pivotal components of who I am today and why I've decided to take on this path.
Nice. A couple of thoughts. Number one, about when you're saying, like, it's almost like with that gentleman who opened a door or reflected through his, maybe the reflection off his tree from his roots, that he's shimmering, and you're able to take advantage of some of that, shade from the harsh light, so to speak, where he impacted you to kind of open your mind to the possibilities
Mhm.
and open that door to a new way of thinking. And in terms of, because obviously, right, everyone are, walking bunches of gases and cells and liquids, and we are that kind of cosmic energy of the world, eh? And also, I follow up back when you mentioned advertising. That was my path back in the day, and I found myself at 28 trying to figure out. I'm working for like the major agencies, and I'm using my creative energies to sell pharmaceutical drugs and really crappy food and alcohol and cigarettes. And I was like, this is not me. And so I walked away and got into fitness. And as the balance professor, that came about when social media wrapped around, but I was always into neuromuscular training and the act of balance. And obviously, that neurochemistry goes on the brain when you do your neural reps, or you get in tune with all that, right? Any great athlete or any person, like, putting in their 10,000 hours, right? That neural repetition of, framing and creating those new connections. And sometimes, it sounds like sometimes people in our lives, like mentors, will come around and they will, like, kind of slap us out, not in like on a loving manner or a loving way, or some kind of open the door, which I find it fascinating because, I'm being mentored right now today still, and I'm with my eyes wide open. And, I try to encourage both that honoring of the past mentors who have helped me in the past, and also try to pay it forward and think that I'm in my practice and my healing and my fitness background trying to bring a unique perspective, to not try to get labeled, but like another option for the general fitness scene. That was my initial kind of take on it. I didn't want to get too heavy and try to dilute or position my work somewhere than other than it really wasn't, where it was growing. And that's kind of like my own garden, you know? And so now I'm coming to a place where back in the day when I first started, Tarun, people were looking at me, my fellow professionals and people in general, like, what is he doing? That doesn't look like nothing. Well, you spend an hour with me and I will destroy you if you're a high-end athlete or just a deconditioned person. And you get a new perspective on what's really, when we talk about the body, temple, and fitness. So, you know, it sounded like that person was really a big one, a big mentor. So God bless him.
Yeah.
And do you remember his name?
Yeah, Jeffrey Nash. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but a good reason to reach out.
Jeffrey Nash. Shout out to Jeffrey Nash.
Yeah.
So listen.
I don't know if he you know, he definitely remembers. I don't know if he knows that relationship had a pivotal result in my life. So I will reach out and thank him. And to
That's
your
cool.
point about how, you know, finding that balance is so important, and really like being able to see yourself differently and open these doors. You know, there's research that has come out recently just about the idea of visualizing working out, moving your biceps, your elbows can increase your muscle mass by over 20%, you know, increase the strength. So what all of this does is like it creates this opportunity for us to see ourselves differently, but starting from where it is created, which is inside. Before it manifests in the outside world, we really have to see it inside. And as you remember in the reality center experience, your eyes are closed. You're seeing all this stuff. We're not projecting it, you're creating it. And so by seeing what's becoming this new reality from inside out, it has time to formulate, it has time to really become clear, and therefore it can manifest in your outside world in this much more powerful, unique way that's more specific to how it is that you want to see yourself, your relationships, your purpose. And that's really the balance. And you said it was a little bit intense when you started. It's just like when you want to relax and you contract your muscles and then open them up, that creates that relaxation. So there's a little bit of resilience training in this, where we want you to use the tools you have. Breathe. Tell yourself that you're okay, you're calm, you're in balance. And those are some of the things that allow us to see results after the fact, right? Because next time a trigger comes up in your day-to-day life, next time somebody cuts you off or you have trouble at work, what are you going to do? You're like, okay, let me get back to, hopefully, that extended breathing, that quieting of the mind. When you feel challenged, you can go back to that place. And we also use these visualization tools like seeing your happy place, filling it with the people that you love or the things and places that really bring joy to your life. As you go into a difficult scenario, if you have that little bookmark that you can go to, that provides this very quick shift that becomes your ability to control the world around you by really having control of that inner world.
You know, that's pretty profound because of how social media technology on one aspect is so like a waterfall of stuff coming at us, just poured in front of us and poured in front of us. We become numb, and there's just so much superficial messaging that if you just keep running the messages and just plowing forward, there's very little time to actually compute and actually comprehend So if you're busy getting, and that's what the crisis of that social media, that neurostimulation, like, scrolling like the Las Vegas, and you're getting those dopamine hits, and that, the advertising, it almost gets like general bland. And now it's an interesting time, and I think in the world, that now we are now counting on each other more intimately and through communities, through these little silos of like our podcast, right? I choose to listen to people who have those, like you mentioned, these positive thoughts, this avoid unnecessary distraction. So I find it fascinating that now that's what's great, using technology like you guys are doing at the Reality Center, to be able to create a natural state of awareness, or this vehicle to help propel and open those doors. I felt like it was almost like a mentoring experience. Let me ask you, so veterans and trauma survivors, they often struggle with like sleep flashbacks or racing thoughts. So there's something that you have the in-tune vocal biofeedback system. What how's this help restore like that nervous system harmony?
Great question. It really goes back to that idea of neural entrainment. And a lot of times when people can't shut down their mind, this there's a lot of energy in that frontal cortex, right? In the processing, trying to figure everything out, inhaling, analyzing everything, but not really exhaling and processing and letting go, observing, right? And so we can look at this whole system as like a throttle. If your brain is moving fast, your heart rate is moving fast, your breath is following along, we're active. Hopefully, we're exercising, or we're really using our facilities to accomplish something. When our brain is moving fast, but the rest of us is moving slow, that's usually anxiety, right? And so the goal in any of these things is to make those different functions synchronize. So we can slow that throttle down using what's called an entrainment, because we operate and we exist by using our senses. Seeing a pattern, hearing a pattern, feeling a pattern that is slow will slow us down. And so our brains, they have this really incredible tool, which is the vibration in which it processes information. And so if we're down in delta, that's deep sleep. Theta, we move up into dreaming. REM, alpha, we're a little bit more focused and relaxed. Beta, a little bit more highly excited. And then gamma, that's just full brain activation and stimulating and providing sensory inputs for somebody that is not able to enter that state, because let's say you can't slow your brain down because you're just focusing or you're worried, right? And so when you go to sleep, mind's racing. A lot of us have that. I've dealt with that myself. And especially people who are in trauma, who are stuck in fight or flight, they can't shut that off because their hypervigilance is trying to protect them. And so what these tools do is it asks you to speak about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. What's your ideal life? Amplifying what's positive instead of talking about your problem. When you do that, and I've studied close to 1,000 people, guiding them through these different types of sessions, in person as well as virtually. A lot of people hate what their voice sounds like, except when they're talking about something they love. And so, just like in a lie detector, there is a change that you can observe between somebody speaking about something mundane or a challenge that they're having versus what would this be like if that problem was solved, if you are already that person. So we look at the change, and your voice has a unique vibration when that speaking is happening. And so we analyze that and we show you. that your words have power, your thoughts that turn into words that you speak, you choose to put out there, that actually has power and a vibration that can be measured. Then we use that unique vibration based on the answer that you have, or based on a specific word that you want to focus on. Let's say a lot of people like freedom or love, and those have a vibration that we can then play back to you as a binaural beat. Binaural beat means there's one frequency in one ear, another frequency in another ear. So it's two slightly offset sounds. And depending on how far apart those are, that's what brainwave state you're going to go into. For example, if it's 100 hertz, which is 100 times a second, it's moving, and 103 in each ear, you're going to hear, because your brain hemispheres want to reconcile them, you're going to hear 3 hertz. That's a delta wave. So if you listen to that and you're talking about what it would be like to wake up refreshed, have the amazing sleep, not have to wake up in the middle of the night to use a bathroom or nightmares or anything like that. And I'm just waking up. I had a peaceful, relaxing sleep. I feel energized and positive. Take that vibration, play it back to you in delta right before you go to sleep. You're going to entrain to that. And as Joe Dispenza says, neurons that fire together, wire together. So we're creating this sort of mental gym, right? And you're working out that brainwave state, that nervous system state that will then eventually let you to go there much more naturally.
I have to comment because my work, and of course, you get this all the time when they go, "Oh, you're the balance professor," and somebody wants to stand on one foot in front of me, and I'm like, "No, it's about the balance of power through your whole body temple on that physiological plane." But in order to really be collaborative, total, you have to be 100% present. And what I found through my work is that most people go, "What? The session's over already?" It's gone. Their time almost stops, that conception of time. They're so engaged connecting their brain to their body on a physiological level, and all the things that may be fluttering in between, right? In terms of them trying to, I always say I like to give my people some situations of controlled chaos on the physical plane. And I go, okay, now, whenever in doubt, slow down. Okay. Then I want you to make sure that you're bringing all your facilities, meaning on a physiological muscles, right? Every single muscle, elbow, knee, whatever, all that, into the movement and be completely present. And I don't have to talk to them and go deep in detail about that. There's 3 things I say. When in doubt, slow down. When you start to get more comfortable, you can pick your pace. I never say faster or slower. I said, show me a smooth movement, a collaborative movement. And what's going on in the brain is probably pretty major. That then I say, okay, you've got that movement down. Now I want you to try to quicken the pace and create power, speed, right? Distance over time. How quick, how your speed with strength. Do that 6 times in a row and nail it. And then we go on to the next challenge. And then we do combinations of challenges. When they walk out of there, there's a sense of a unification and a journey that they had no idea just what happened. But they're bringing it down in simple terms in their brain so I can say, listen, just listen to what I'm saying. This is what you're going to try. I'm not going to tell you when to slow down or faster. Can you give me some kind of smooth action and get comfortable with it? And it's almost, if you think about it from a context of an analogy, the roads we lead every day are bumpy. And sometimes there is no road. Sometimes it's smooth. So I like to feel that now, especially with after COVID, after the big emphasis on, right, talking about mental health, right? This is much more in the foreground. And when you talk about psychedelics and conditioning the conscious mind, and right, we were literally, I left advertising because I felt like I was programming people, just having this blanket message of nothing really being said, just things trying to be sold. So at that age, I just discovered that there's got to be more to this.
Yeah.
So it's funny, Tarun, because I'll go into the next question, but I have to make this comment. When I first started my fitness career, I just got out of advertising, and I was so confident and so cocky and young. I said, watch for me in the funny papers because I'm going to turn the fitness industry on its head. And my training style now is being recognized by fighters, elite athletes, recreational athletes, and, baby boomers alike that understand that a proper functioning temple will keep that pain away. So anyway, that's my bit. So listen, your journey into frequency therapy began at a young age with your brother.
Wow. Just a little break here. Another great episode. I hope you are enjoying Imagine Fitting In podcast. And just a reminder here, please remember to hit the subscribe button because we love to feel you a part of our Imagine Fitting In family. And if you want to become a brand ambassador, we'd love it if you would share this link on social media, through your email, all your friends. You can help with us with donations, any small donation, big or large, whatever you can manage, to help encourage us and support our efforts here. And you'll find that link in the show notes. And finally, again, a reminder, please refer guests to us. You can find me and contact me at TheBalanceProfessor@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. All right. So I hope you continue enjoying Imagine Fitting In. All right. Till next time.
Can you share those early experiments that shaped the healing tools you've created today? Like, how was that like? I bet that was a trip.
That was a trip. Yes. And both of us started DJing when we were really, really young, much to my father's dismay.
Like a doctor, I can only imagine.
That's right. Yeah. 12 or 13 years old. I got my first turntables. Thank you, Mom. And that really led to, there's a passion in music. Like I would literally go to I would DJ until I fell asleep. Right. It's passionate about music and felt the power of those vibrations. Right. Music is this universal healing modality, and it gets you to
Absolutely.
feel something. So fast forward a few years, my brother and I, we would take trips to India, and obviously that always sort of creates a little bit more of a spiritual connection to our lineage, and just doing yoga and martial arts and all of that stuff. It really makes you want to really get more in touch with that temple. So we started experimenting with what sound could do. And the first thing was using the Schumann resonance, which is basically the vibration of the earth through its atmosphere that's generated by lightning, right? And so the energy that is basically creating this living earth is something that our alpha brainwaves are actually entrained to, going back to that idea of entrainment. So the world around us has rhythms, and we are part of that, and we're receiving that. And the more aligned we are with it, the more harmony that we feel, and the more that we're not, then we feel a lot of dissonance. And oftentimes we think it's just us, but it's actually the rhythms of the planet are changing constantly. If we don't adapt and we're not aware of that, it becomes very difficult. So what we found is that when we use this 7.8 hertz, which is sort of the most consistent vibration of this Schumann resonance, we would start tripping. So we would start going to different places just by listening to these sounds, and really expanded our depth in meditation. So that was really the first foray into that in early 20s. Um, um,
Were you putting? Were you
almost,
putting?
what's that?
Were you? Were you consciously putting that into your mixes? Like when you're DJing, were you conscious of it?
At that
How
time,
that might potentially going to? Okay.
at that time, we had just started experimenting. Then it started making its way into the mixes, but opening up those doors really created a hard pivot for me because then I got into the energy healing side of things. Then I decided to go study these visual arts so I could make things on screen using sound and visuals that might evoke an emotion or change people. So it's been an underlying characteristic in my work for a long time. But then, much like you, I got back into advertising again, and I'm making commercials and editing and creating these different motion graphics to sell products that I didn't care about. Jonathan and I get together. We realize that we're both doing something similar, and it would be much more fun and much more aligned to tell stories about things that we care about. And that was really what got us into working with all the veteran nonprofits and telling their stories, amplifying their messaging for fundraising and just get things out there, electric cars, different celebrities doing good things. And that really landed us in COVID. And so knowing that, hey, there's tools out there that are not only helping the veteran community, but now the entire world has gone through this collective trauma of COVID, it's going to be that much
Right.
more important to provide these tools. And that really is what got us, to this point where now we're including all these different frequencies and healing science into the music that we play, into the the various audiovisual experiences that we even do for groups and much more large event settings. So we have group experiences in which we use a lot of this stuff, and sometimes your eyes are open and the visuals can create that entrainment along with the sound. And then sometimes, as you experienced, and what we do for groups as well, is that you close your eyes and then you go inwards. And so it's about how you tweak these tools and hold this temple, our bodies, our minds, sacred. So what you put in,
Exactly.
instead of putting in that social media, scrolling mindlessly, getting those quick dopamine fixes, envy and a lust towards results, we can use those same mediums in order to get people in tune or aligned with themselves.
Yeah. I just have to say that, I believe I'm a few years older than you, but, you had the good fortune of having a young life before social media. I'm sure you were right on as the flow or the crest. But I just try to put my head around imagining these children that have come to that age before they don't have anything. That's all they know. And then obviously future generations if this keeps up. So, I go back to a big shout out for your efforts because, guys like you that have know really what's real and you're able to use this technology and your visuals and your creativity as an artist and put those along with Jonathan in those efforts with your whole team to be able to, have that canvas and be brave enough, be fortuitous enough, enough belief in that the power that is awaiting not only yourself and doing a new endeavor, but then opening up and the floodgates to potential. And of course, I think COVID it was like that, that polarity, that dark and light, like extreme dark, that everybody, I mean, there wasn't anybody not affected by that somehow, either negatively, horrendously, or powerfully positive, or just somewhere in between. And I think in, like leaving advertising. I mean, I know it's you pay the rent and get your roof over your head, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's like that contribution, that potential is just so powerful. So I give you bravo for your guys' efforts. And this is why I have you on. And, anything, my efforts, I lost my nephew to addiction. And so this podcast was started in his honor. And I'm looking to try to make an impact to remind people how powerful mentorship is, and keep your eyes wide open, because you never know when you pass somebody and make a statement, how it could literally change their lives to whatever degree. Now, many young people, they turn to pills and to alcohol and risky behaviors to cope with the stress. How is what you're doing at the Reality Center a safer alternative for finding relief?
Great question. And, grateful to those who have lost their way and lost their lives trying to find their way, find a solution for purpose and balance. And those of us who witness this, and their sacrifice creates a motivation. It catalyzes it. It's that pendulum swinging back and forth, the light and the dark. I find, and I've worked with people with severe addictions, I found that they're suffering from the same things that a lot of the veterans have, which is this lack of purpose, lack of an ability to see themselves shining in the world again. As a veteran, you come from war, you're a superhero. You have very specific routines and tasks and missions that you're doing with a group of individuals that are just like you, that you're on a shared journey. When you come back and you're just like, okay, now what? You may have all these injuries, and you may have, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual injury. And you don't have any tools in order to deal with that. You don't have your comrades. You don't have the people who are, in the trenches with you in order to solve that. People that are suffering from addiction, they have very similar traits. They feel alone. They don't feel purpose. They don't feel connected to anything. And a lot of it comes through trauma. So you are using a substance to disassociate from yourself and not feel those things again. And once you're so far away from it, that becomes another repeating loop. It's something that you've trained yourself to do.
Pattern.
Right? Just like physical training, that emotional, that mental training, it starts taking place. You start wiring pathways to only get life when you are in that altered state. So what our experience does a great job of is showing you that there's another way. There's another way that you can get home. There's another way that you can feel without experiencing the negative thoughts in a way that you can't handle. So when you're getting a full body massage, your brain is going through this wormhole of light and sound, and some annoyance or something comes up, you can just move right past it much, much more easily than when you're sitting with your own devices by yourself and trying not to focus on these things that are taking you down a dark path. So the neuroplasticity, this dream state, allows you to dream a new dream, allows you to see more clearly the possibilities that your life can take a different turn. And so by amplifying this positive effect, by helping somebody visualize what that looks like, and then using the technology to amplify and train the nervous system, the brain into that state of cohesion and harmony, that's where these folks who are normally trying to disassociate realize how powerful it is to feel and that they can feel good again. When that happens, it opens the door to something that is completely new and an opportunity to change.
You know, what you said about, those veterans returning, they had that strong purpose. They did something righteous. And it's like that return, or you had some kind of achievement in life. And then all of a sudden that was a form of stability or encouragement, but along the way, you, I don't know, get intoxicated, start to depend on it. You start losing almost sight of your original, almost like, where your homegrown essence of who you were. And when we get out and, like you mentioned, the word purpose, that all of a sudden, like, oh, I haven't discovered a strong purpose. Or the other side of it is like, I have done a strong purpose and it was righteous, but now I don't have the opportunity to do exactly that purpose. So with veterans, I'm sure that they're they just know that's so much ingrained, in that the traumatic experiences are probably hard to kind of shake off. And it probably, so in other traumatic experiences, it throws people off on their original essence. And so it's just all cluttered. And, and I don't know about you, because I'm a musician and drummer, and the music is exactly what you mentioned earlier, the harmony, right? That interior harmony because who can explain why a particular person just loves a particular song? Most songs are probably getting them with the beats and the harmony, the energy of the music, and the words usually just top it off. That's my opinion. Because I think, again, as a universal language, right? You can go into a room, and if there's the right kind of tones, right, of music, doesn't have to be any vocals. It sets the stage, right? It just creates an environment like, oh, I'm going to be comfortable being a little bit more like myself, as opposed to something that's really chaotic and like aggravating sounding when you walk in. You can just imagine everybody's looking at each other like, oh, what the hell? Anyway, I got off track a little bit. So tell me, you mentioned sleep. So what about giving the restorative effect of a full night's sleep in 20 minutes? Okay, so you mentioned, how's this happen in a session to allow such a deep recovery?
A lot of times, for example, in my life, I'll speak for myself. Physical pain has been a big obstruction for me comfortably sleeping. I have hypermobility, so I had a lot of injuries playing sports throughout my life. Every joint possible popped out. So that makes it hard to just be comfortable lying down in a flat position. So one of the beautiful things about this is that full body vibration, vibroacoustic stimulation, it moves that fluid through your body. The blood, you get better blood flow. The fascial adhesions that create all these knots, they start to unwind, partially because of that stimulation, but partially because your mind is relaxing. Right? So when the mind relaxes, it's getting trained to go into that deep, relaxed, peaceful state of low theta delta. The body is getting this full massage, relaxing sounds, music. A lot of people, contrary to what it looks like with all the stimulation, they just go to sleep. So if you're just like a go, go, go alpha type of personality, or you haven't been sleeping, I mean, you're off to sleep in the first 10 minutes. And you may come in and out because our goal is to sort of get you in that in between state, sort of like a lucid dream where you can be in control and still aware. The lights help a lot with that. But sometimes you just need a psychedelic power nap, I like to call it. And when you come back from that, it's a full body relaxation. A lot of people haven't experienced that length of REM or in theta or delta, and really the physical restoration that comes along with that. So you wake up from that because the journey brings you down and then back up, so you're not super groggy when we come back to the present. So you come out around alpha brainwave state, which is really like focused and relaxed. Now you see what it's like to go deep into the super relaxed sleep state and then come back up refreshed. So you're training, it's like a very quick hour long on a regular, normal session, an hour long
Yeah.
journey that would normally take 8 hours, 10 hours. And so we're saying, hey, body, get used to this. This is what it looks like in order to have peaceful, restful, expanded sleep. And so when you go to bed that night, those after effects are still flowing. And you can more easily get into that state. It's just like doing reps at the gym. It's the same thing. We're just creating new connections, new muscle memory, except that muscle is your brain.
I can tell you that I can speak very highly of that because, once that person, when I was mentioning to you, I give them a controlled chaos, right? It's something that they've never attempted their brain to discover or try to solve. And they'll come back the next day and they will be good. They'll be good with it. They're like, boom, boom, boom. You can see it's noticeable. It's crazy. I'll have somebody try something and it is the most difficult thing. And after maybe 18, 20 repetitions, you see signs of improvement and they feel it. And that sense of accomplishment that, again, underlying so much going on in the brain that resonates with it right after the session. And like you said, right, the brain is this amazing muscle of connectivity to the body total. And that delicate that organism that we call our bodies is, again, so universally powerful and connected with that the light and sound and vibration and how we feel. I think a big thing for me after experiencing your guys' reality center was how much vibration is real. How much there's subtle vibrations with somebody saying a pleasant good morning or saying good morning with a little bit of a tone. And with those little, I'm kind of a detail freak in my training, and people appreciate that. And I feel for your hypermobility issues because that is a huge challenge for a lot of people in terms of they don't realize how critical that body tempo and keeping it together when you have hypermobility. Sometimes you think like, oh, look at this, I can do this. But then when it comes to wear and tear, it talks. So
Right.
Listen, for a teen listening right now, who feels like their mind just won't slow down, what would a first session at the Reality Center look like and feel like?
Well, the first session is honestly, it's the most exciting one. But what we're selling is safety and trust. So you come in and we want to hear about what is that you're looking to work on. And as a teenager, there's so many new pressures that some of us haven't even experienced, like you said, growing up with mobile phones and all that judgment that comes from social media, having to go through COVID, making it hard to even connect with people physically. So this is an opportunity to really shut that out and get to focus on yourself for a little while. Get to receive. And you'll find that you're your greatest teacher as long as you shut out those outside voices, the outside world for a little while from time to time. And that you can get to that place of excitement and stimulation through that imagination that you had when you were a little kid. That as we all get older, we're all trying to get back there. Yet when we're young, we're trying to grow up. So
Hey,
seeing ourselves in that new light is the cure to most things that ail us. And this is just an
that
opportunity, a shortcut to be able to get there.
yeah, there's two things that stand out, and that's a great nugget, Tarun. So thank you. I'm always looking for nuggets to highlight for messages for both young and old. The fact that it's just such a natural resource that we literally distracted human beings to be pulled away on a psychological, even a physiological level of their own capabilities, their own natural state, which is really kind of treacherously prosperous. What is it like? That's not the right word. Just so, I almost have to use this word, so diabolical in terms of manipulation. In that, like you mentioned, I think you said, right? We're our own best. I don't even like the word you use, doctor. Or we're our own best medicine, our own best contributor to what, like you said, when we're younger, we kind of know. And I always, ask you, like when you were a young kid, do you remember, like, do you remember having your very first like dream or what you wanted to be as a kid, that early childhood? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I wanted to be, I was an astronaut or a firefighter pilot.
You want to fly.
Yeah, I wanted to fly. My vision was terrible, so that was impossible in those days. But yeah, fly and go fast, right? Because maybe I felt stuck. Maybe I felt stuck, and there was this freedom to just being able to get away, to get into an escape.
Yeah.
Years later, I realized that you can fly by going inwards much further than you can by going outwards.
Oh, another great nugget. Yeah. Amazing. So I got one more for you. So you worked with a wide range of people: Olympic athletes, combat veterans, artists, and students. So what do they all have in common when it comes to the healing?
Hmm.
In terms of the Reality Center, and what have you experienced that, from all walks of life?
Most people struggle with meditation or silencing the mind because it feels like sitting still and like wrestling with your own mind and your priorities and the sense of safety. So we flip that and we engage all the senses so the body actually feels safe and in control again. And so when light, sound, and vibration are all in harmony, your nervous system can shift into the balance that it was originally supposed to be. And so a lot of us, we go through life and we think that this is normal. This high stress, high pressure environment is supposed to be our day-to-day feeling. And just having this opportunity to show someone what normal actually should feel like, what having that vibration moving through all the body and realizing that you are this magical, harmonious being, that self-awareness creates power. And the hundreds of billions of dollars that are spent in order to distract us through media and grabbing our attention. It's a very valuable moments where we are free from that. And when we can create our own reality.
Power
That is
within.
the unique thing. Yes, the power within. That is a unique thing that we can create an environment for people to do that for themselves much faster than any other means that I've found.
Super powerful reminder and actual, as you know, I will tell you that I had one experience and it was definitely profound. It was a reminder that your thoughts and your openness to new thoughts and to keep your eyes wide open and the reality of the vibrations around us and what we spend our times thinking about that's generating our eventual display to the world or to that inner turmoil that we bring to ourselves. In that, I think that session immediately, and when you mentioned the like coming out the alpha, whatever, that I was completely relaxed, reflective, appreciative, and that little mini journey was like a little like a kind of like a space travel, like you said, right? The astronaut, a little space travel, cycling around like the Earth where I just was or I had been, and is very very reflective and powerful. So another thing you said, it reminds me of, it's like almost like we're in the condition we're in, and when we have all these outer influences via media and then socially, culturally, and then the COVID thing, and it just like I talked about this often, that there's just a huge tipping point where it was shaking and tipping. Now it just got thrown completely, tossed over. And I think that work like you're doing, and Jonathan and your team, which again I applaud your efforts. We're bringing it down to these communication community communication silos that are that more and more people are realizing that that they have the capacity to access stuff in their communities. They have the capacity to grow and learn and contribute themselves and to empower more purpose, or to discover purpose, and to realize that the simplest thing is saying like it's a nice day out, it's a pretty dress or whatever, is one of the most powerful things you can change a person's perspective, or at least it's something I say a lot, Tarun. It's like these days, if you're struggling or you feel that it's just been so unfair to you, and that to try to be kind, sometimes just not saying anything is being kind.
Mm.
And if you can't muster that up, and hopefully you find yourself aware enough that the communal setting, people nearby you, everything that's said, spoken every day, no matter how joyful or sorrowful, is a part of our journey. And that, again, leaving advertising, and being on this path that I carved myself. I wasn't comfortable just going down a particular path with some light on it. For some reason, I needed to grab a machete and just go do the work, and whatever happens, happens. And it's the most rewarding, because you learn a lot about your resilience, and you learn a lot about really the point of being here is much more broad than circumstance and the world you happen to be born into. And I think that people are now we're realizing on a more universal level and being able to have dialogue, because people are actually caring. I believe that people are starting to care more and realize that there's other opportunities, other channels, and other ways for us to treat this stress. And you guys, again, are doing out in Santa Monica, the Reality Center. We'll have all your information. You guys are doing just wonderful work. And again, I applaud you. I thank you. And it's been a pleasure having you today.
Yeah, likewise, Greg. Thank you for shining a light on what we're doing, like abstract alternative modalities that really are going to be the forefront of health and wellness going forward, because people need to feel their power, especially this day and age and what we're going into. That's the great equalizer. And so democratizing access to tools like this, that's our mission. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I love it. Feel your power, people. Feel your power. So continued much success. And I'm sure that we'll be spending more time together and having conversation. So you be well. Give my best to Jonathan and your whole team.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciate you.
Likewise, Greg.
All right. All right, guys. All right, guys. It's another great episode. Till next time, kids. Bye-bye.